Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Brush. I'm Jerry Donaghy, or Jerry Donaghy. I own and operate Paintworks NI and Paintworks NI Academy. We are on episode 11 already. Behind the Brush is all about a place for painters and decorators and anyone else who's interested in learning about the people behind the business, people behind the brush, and learning a wee bit more about these awesome humans out doing their day and daily awesome work, uh, keeping her lit, and just getting to know the highs, the lows, the positives, and yeah, just having fun with it. And I've learned so much every single episode. There's a wee nugget of information that someone has shared, and the feedback that I'm getting from everybody is that they can really relate to everyone on the episodes, and just how raw and honest everyone is being. And for me, when you're doing it live, you're getting to experience it in real time. And for those listening back on Spotify and YouTube, you know like last week we went down, we got deep. We talked about stuff that I've never spoke about before, in all honesty. And I had an asthma, almost had an asthma attack last week, but you just don't know what way it's gonna go. But this week we have Brian Cooney. Everyone knows him as Uncle Brian. He is the owner operator of Pretty Boy Products. It's an amazing brand. It's very well known within the industry, all down to the hard work that Brian does and how he connects with so many people. He's also probably the most traveled painter I know in the industry as well. But let's get him on. Let's learn about Brian's journey. If you want to leave a comment, please do, and we will get back or try and answer them in real time throughout the conversation. If you can hit like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, just wherever you're listening, it goes a long way to support this podcast and what it is for. It's for painters and decorators to come, chill out during their working day, listen to a couple of painters talking about what we do and how we get through it, how we achieve, overcome, you name it. So let's get Brian on. Boom. Hello, how are we?
What's happening? What's going on, Jerry?
Thank you for joining me. It is a bit short notice for you, because one of the guys couldn't make it, but you were supposed to be coming on a couple of weeks, but it turns out 11's your lucky number, so that's awesome.
Born 11th day, 11th month.
Awesome.
November 11th.
So how's things?
Things are good. Things are good. Am I freezing up on you? Can you see me?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, good. Things are good. I'm in St. Pete's, Florida for another 2 weeks, and then I head up north to New York. So I spent the winter in the most gorgeous weather. Oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Awesome. Awesome. So for anybody that doesn't know you, Brian, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself and just explain Pretty Boy?
So I've been painting on and off my whole life for my dad. He used to flip houses, and on the side I've liked it, but it wasn't until 2002 when I lost my job in the restaurant business after 9/11. Buddy of mine said, "Come paint my house in Philadelphia." And that really started my career in painting. I never had anything to do with it kind of full time with it. And by the end of that summer, I had the idea for Pretty Boy, but I didn't move on it for 14 years. I knew that there needed to be something for the latex, right? Something for the paint. And I went into my local paint store and he said, use dish soap or use water only. And I said, somebody's got to create something for the latex. This stuff's messy. And we knew the oils were going away and the latex was going to be the most predominant paint coming out. So I've been right there. But yeah, that's how I kind of got started with it. But yeah, that's kind of and when I moved to New York City at 40 years old, I started selling real estate. I didn't like it. So for extra money, I used to paint apartments in Manhattan. And then,
So,
yeah.
in terms of 14 years it took you to act on it, what would you tell somebody that has an idea or has something that they're just in their belly, they know they want to act on, but they're sort of saying, I'll wait? What would you say to them?
Yeah, you got to be more afraid not to do it than you are to do it.
Yeah.
You got to look at your deathbed and you're going to lay there one day and you having regrets.
Yeah.
That being said, the entrepreneurial route is not for everybody.
Yeah.
I never had kids. I was single. I didn't have any debt. So, I'd gotten sober in 2014. And by 2016, I was ready to do this. I was
Yeah.
all in. You have to
Yeah.
be all in. You can't dabble in it. You can get lucky, but most of us. So my answer is you have to really want to do it.
Yeah. I think the paint industry is obviously one of the easiest things for people to just say, when there's a um you know markets crash. I can't think of the word right now. Whenever everything goes to shit, basically COVID, people lose their jobs, recession, that's the one, recession. It's just, oh, we'll go pick up a brush and paint and we'll start a painting business, but it just isn't as simple as that. And I think for I talked about it even recently, you're gonna essentially you get into the casino and just playing roulette. And yes, you may just, make a couple of pound on a job, but most of the time the house will always win, you know.
Exactly.
Um, how have you found the comparison to did you own your own painting business?
Yeah, I had it was called BMC Painters, and I did it for 3 years in Philly. So that was, I started with my buddy's house. Then I
Yeah.
painted the other side. So they have what's called a twin, right? So it was a
Yeah.
house divided down the middle. So I painted one side. The neighbor watched me do my work and she liked it. I painted her side. And then small jobs in between. And then the summer came back the next year and I was kind of full time doing it. So I had no training on it at all. I used to go in the paint stores, talk to other painters. I got really good at everything but probably skim coating. That was something that just kind of was a little tricky for me. But, I figured out the right paint, how to prime, how to tint the primer, how to caulk, at a certain stage. And I fell in love with it because I was always in the restaurant business. I grew up in the restaurant business and it was really quiet. And it was kind of merging with that time of my life where I really needed to be quiet and figure out what was my next move. And painting gives you all that alone time to be with yourself. And either you're going to go mad or you're going to work something out. So I really liked it. I really liked it.
You get a lot of comments in the UK and Ireland, basically if you haven't served your time or trained in a college, you're not necessarily a painter. Um, I obviously would contest that because yes, you may have went to college and yes, you may have served your time. It doesn't necessarily mean you've learned the right way or with the right person. What's your opinion on that, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, if it's in your heart, you're going to learn it, right? You know what I mean? You can also be a guy that's educated and hate it.
That's it.
You 90% of everything you do in painting is prep. And
Yeah.
if you don't like what you do, you're not going to prep it. You're also going to be rough with the clients. You might overcharge. You're not playing the long game. You're playing the short game. So
Yeah.
I loved it. And I did it for years and years. And even in New York City, I did these things called the suitcase jobs in New York City. I was selling real estate and I wasn't making enough money. And the guy in my office, I heard him say, I really need a painter. We're closing tomorrow. And I said, well, what's that? And then, yeah, we need a painter. Okay. So I came up with a suitcase idea where I'd come in with the suitcase as if I was looking at the apartment to buy it. And then I'd break out the boom,
Brilliant.
make $1,000 quick. And that's how much I liked it. So after I got sober in 2014, then I was all in. I said, I'm ready for this. So then I worked underneath a bigger contractor called Bandela Construction who had that $60,000 a year insurance until I was able to get up to the point. But yeah, it was great. Then I painted hundreds and hundreds of apartments in Manhattan, and that was great.
I think it's again a thing, business. It doesn't matter what you're doing. I think you'll ultimately, as long as you're making money and you can enjoy it to a certain point, it makes the day that wee bit better. I think whenever you're doing the likes of painting and decorating and you're making no money, and I think the biggest thing in the industry is pricing. And I think I'm guilty of it. I spent a lot of time working for nothing, and scraping the barrel. And I did love it. I enjoyed every bit of it. And it was just, I suppose, just a very expensive apprenticeship. But at the same time, I think in the industry here, I think there's a huge hunger for help when it comes to pricing. And I think if more people had that guidance and that way of understanding, this is your numbers, this is what you got to understand, what you need to make. I know it sounds good, but you could be going to work to lose money. So it's like, well, if more there was more help out there, where guys and girls understood better in terms of pricing, and they were making more, they could do their job better. And there's always that want to do better, but the money doesn't allow them. And I see that all the time on social media, where, oh, I wish I could do that sort of job, that sort of finish, but I can't make that, I can't earn that sort of money or get my customers to pay me. What do you think of that, and how would you counteract that or help?
I think you have to realize that our schools around the world are just there to dumb us down.
That's
They're
right.
there just to, if you loved your citizens, you would teach them about financing from the age of 6 years old on. It's a curriculum. It doesn't have to be painting. I got out with an undergrad in business from North Carolina State University. I have an undergrad, and I learned zero about business. I learned zero. So the problem is nobody wants to tell you the real stuff, and it gets dumber and dumber. So we should know as citizens, what is a margin? How much do we need to start a business? How much is insurance? We should know these things, and they're not that hard to teach. So so that's the main thing, is that I did the same thing. You get in there and you stand in the room and you go, okay, it's going to take me 4 days to paint this. I got Charlie helping me. He wants $200 cash. The paint's going to be this. And then you kind of juggle it. And then you go too heavy and you lose the job. So, yeah, that's why these guys are coming out now, the Nick Slavics and all these guys are coming out there with their courses to basically help you price. And there's a lot of, everybody's shy about asking for anything. And in your country, in Ireland, I know a lot of Irish guys, everything is like, in Australia is the same way. Don't be too big, man. Don't be too successful. You know what I mean? And that's always the thing that's kind of pushing people down. So yeah, I agree with you. We got to learn how to price. If not, if you knew you weren't going to make any money on that job, you wouldn't have started down that road. But you go down that road and you really we all want to be loved, right? And the painters we're all pretty much the same person. We're like, we want to be accepted. We want to please people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we get ourselves in trouble with that, especially with the wrong client. Sees that. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think there's, it can certainly be a painful industry. And I think the more it's being able to ask, it's being able to say, look, I haven't got this worked out yet and I need help, and asking for the help. I have a private Facebook group, Paintworks NI Academy, where I discuss operating costs, figures, profit, margin. I try and go deep into how I've learned and understood. I used to think I was making 60, 70,000 a year. I wasn't take out all the business expenses out of that. It was probably about, 25, it was not that, you want to make 60, put 60 on top of your operating costs, and then work out your day rate and work out what you need to be earning to generate that amount of money. And I think when I certainly realized that for the first time, it scared the shit clean out of me, because I realized I'd actually been working for next to nothing, and I thought I was earning lots of money. And I think a lot of us do. And I think we avoid that conversation with ourselves. We sort of put it off and put it off, and we're sort of, I am making money. I'm seeing all this turnover come into my bank account. But actually, when you break it down and you're wondering why you can't see your bank account growing, even though you're bringing in thousands of pounds, and it just keeps this, sort of flat lines, goes down, goes up a bit, goes down, flat lines, but there's no real climb. And I think that's your first indicator that you need to sit down and do a bit of a business health check. But in terms of yourself and your journey with Pretty Boy, it obviously, I mean, you've been doing this since 2014,
No, I've had it on the market since 2018. I
18.
came up with the I moved I hired I came up I went on this beautiful spiritual trip to India and Nepal, and
Okay.
I was about 2.5 years sober, and I was looking for me. What's next? I was approaching 50 years old.
Yeah.
I put down the bottle at 49, so I gave myself 2.5 years. So sorry, I was approaching 52. And I came back from Nepal and India with like, it's time to start this idea. So I hired a chemist. I couldn't, it took me a year to, it took me 2 months to find a chemist. I found a paint chemist. He was $250 an hour. And we begun on this idea of this non-toxic paint soap, what do I want from it? How does it going to work? What is it going to clean? So he would get me about this much every 2 weeks. And it took us about 8 months, and 18 formulas later, I had Pretty Boy. So I had the product, and then it was all about, okay, who's going to make it? How much is it going to cost? Again, there's no training there, right? If your dad is wealthy and rich, money. My dad was a sailor. I don't know money. I don't know what I'm doing, but I knew I kind of wanted to get back into the products, because I had a product in the 90s with my brothers. I love creating products. So 18 formulas later, now we're in 2017. We go around, we find a factory to make it. I make 1,000 bottles just like this, and nobody wanted it. And you're like, oh no, what do I do now? I thought everybody was going to love it. And then you had to realize you had to create the market. I had to create the market. So what does that mean? I had to give it out. I got on Instagram in 2019 and just started talking about it, getting it out there. And I've created the market. I really have. This is really the first paint soap and conditioner that's going to re-wet everything, and it's going to be non-toxic. And we've been needing this. I mean, Purdy brushes, Corona brushes should have made a Pretty Boy 20 years ago. But unfortunately, they want the brushes to go bad. They don't want you to clean them. They don't want them to do it. So this is coming from me, a professional painter. And this does everything you need it to do. Brushes, rollers, sprayers, everything.
If I go back, you said there you believed in it. You were pumped. You were excited. You were ready to rock and roll. You got your 1,000 bottles, and then bang, nobody wanted it. And I think, is that not probably one of the most common things with anything anybody sort of starts out a business, starts a podcast, starts anything, and you believe in it. That's what got you there, and then suddenly you hit that where, does anyone like it? Am I a waste of space? Is this business going anywhere? You've no measurement tool. Um, but I think it's not just the core. That's the time where you have to say, this is where you get the foundation. It's time to lay the foundations and start building, and not just expect everybody to just jump on your dream. You got to work for it. And I think that's the difference between a solid entrepreneur, business mind, person, I suppose, Would you agree, or
Yeah,
is
most
that where
definitely.
you realized, hold on a minute, I gotta get the gloves on and I gotta start digging, I gotta keep her lit here.
I remember sending a case of Pretty Boy, 12 bottles to a distributor, and never heard anything back. And I mean, that's how ignorant we are when it comes to a new business, a
Yeah,
podcast, a brand. But
yeah,
yeah, where the rubber hits the road is, so what are you going to do about it? Are you going to give up on it? Or are you going to get, like you said, are you going to get the Mike Tyson? Everybody has a plan to get punched in the face. And I got punched solidly in the face, and nobody wanted it. I remember giving the first bottle to Johnny Dater, the happy painter in Texas, and Sam Chandler, the right painter. And they used it and they said, yeah, you got something here. And
yeah.
Todd Burwell was the first guy that put it in a bucket and threw rags in there and was caulking his hands. Johnny Dater ran it through a sprayer. So you got to get it out there and you got to get messy, and you can't learn it from the porch. You got to get on the field and you got to get bruised up. And it's the only way to do it.
You gotta get thick skin for sure. I mean, it's like everything, you gotta understand you're gonna get kickback, you're gonna get people pushing back. And on that note, washing up liquid. So what's the difference? Why don't we just use washing up liquid to clean our brushes, or fabric softener to strip our wallpaper? Why don't we just stick that through the sprayer as well? Brian, what is the difference for someone
Well, that
that's
doesn't make me any money.
But
That's the number one dish. You guys use dish soap. I don't make any money. So no, I'm just kidding. So dish soap. Let's just talk about dish soap. Dish soap is 4 to 6% surfactants. It's got fat, wax, and lanolins for your hands. So it's going to take off some of that latex. But unfortunately, it's not going to take it all off because it's not formulated for latex. It's formulated for greasy dishes. And then it's going to add the fat, wax, and lanolins to it, which is going to eventually ruin the brush. You're pushing the bristle out. You're putting this glycerin on the brush. It has this cottage cheese effect. So it's kind of stupid of you as a painter to pay $25 for a brush and then use dish soap on it because this is overpriced or whatever. So Pretty Boy is 25% surfactants. These 4 cleaners are designed to re-wet latex, re-wet glue, re-wet the dirt, the oil, and separate it. It's got a dispersant, which means it disperses the dirt or the paint away from the substrate. And then it has a hair conditioner, which is, like you said, the softening liquid that's going to make sure that the bristle stays pliable and keeps it from locking in. So this is the first product that's really formulated for painters. And again, we had to formulate it around that brush first. It had to work for the brush first, or you had nothing. So 18 formulas later. And think about it. You pay 12 pounds for this. You use 1 squirt for the day in a bucket. You clean everything up, right? And you save yourself hundreds of dollars, and you're still fighting it. So the cleaning stuff is something I think people will always fight, especially the old school guys who are willing to use something toxic. So toxic. They use crud cutter. They use sugar soap. That stuff has got a pH of 13. It's like oven cleaner on your, if you love your client, why are you putting oven cleaner on your cabinets? Because they just get used to using one thing and they can't change. So it is phenomenal product. It is made for you, the painter. It's going to save you money. It's going to keep you safe. It's gentle on your skin. It doesn't smell bad. It doesn't offend your client. If it gets on the hardwood floors of the furniture, it's not going to burn them up.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah. So the thing is, you got these painters that say that, they're obviously jealous that they don't have their own product. There's no reason why they don't want to try something new. But I get it, right? You don't have to buy it. But if you do try it, everybody goes, my God, it works. Again, dish soap, 4 to 6% soap. Pretty Boy, 25%. So 5 times the concentration.
Yeah.
Theirs is formulated for greasy dishes. This is formulated for glue to re-wet it. And then it has the hair conditioner all built in. So again, the whole idea is if you pay 12 euros for this and it saves you 250 worth of product, $300, $400 worth of brushes, why not? So
I
give
think
it a try.
the first ball I ever got was Darren from Axis. Big shout out to
Yeah.
Darren. And Darren said to me, "Look, try this out." And um, we were stripping wallpaper, and it worked a dream, especially for cleanup. And then again, we were on the sites. We sprayed a wee bit in the tiles or wooden floor. We were able to use a bit in the paint. So at any one time, like, there's always a bottle on site. And it's safe because some of the stuff you put on these things, it's taking off the clear coats, it's leaving a mark behind. And as you say, like, see, at the minute, I'm really conscious of solvents and
Yeah.
toxicity.
Yeah.
So I'm even starting to like, I've started to shift completely over to water-based kitchen refinishing, just because the more I'm learning, even about masks, and the masks that most painters are wearing are not suitable for spraying. Um, they're dust masks essentially. They look like a spray mask, but they're not catching the vapors. They're not catching everything that's we don't see, and we're breathing in every day. And ultimately as well, it's your skin, the stuff that you're like, we as decorators are constantly breathing in fillers, toxic paints, compound dust, um, what else? Oil-based paints.
All lead paints
Yeah,
and
like everything that
pigments
we're
and
doing.
everything.
And we are doing this every single day. And the biggest thing for me last year was when my dad got voice box cancer. And I've talked about this a couple of times in previous episodes, but it really highlighted to me when the doctor was constantly asking him, "How long have you been off cigarettes? What have you been breathing in over the years? What have you been cutting? What have you been had access to?" All these things are constantly, um, you're breathing it in all the time, and using these products, and we just do it anyway. We don't, we're just getting on with it. We have to make money and get the day in, and it's huge. So that's why, eco-friendly, I think it's a massive factor. And some of the products you are spraying, you don't realize, you think it's just a cleaning product, but it's not. Yes, it's good, but what's the long-term damage? I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, but it is true. And I think if you actually look up some of these products painters and decorators are using all the time, it would scare the life out of you. So it
Yeah.
would,
Yeah.
you
Like,
know.
let's take Crud Cutter, for example, right? It's on in America, it's on every single paint shop. Now, is it going to take the grease off the cabinets? Absolutely. But it's got a pH of 13, which is the same as oven cleaner. So the only time you'd actually really need that product is in a restaurant, right? If you're in a restaurant that has a fryer,
Yeah.
or right over the stove, you might have a heavy cook. But the other 95% of that kitchen just got little spatters of grease that this does great. And the main thing is that's people just get so addicted to that product because it's kind of worked in the past, but it also that doesn't come out of the wood a lot of times. It doesn't rinse off. It can affect adhesion problems. Again, it's on your skin, it's getting in your lungs, it's dinging your kidneys, and you're using it every single day as your primary cleaner. This is non-toxic. It's safe. You can keep your hands in it all day long. Why wouldn't you give it a try? Is $12 going to kill you? I think, again, maybe it's the funny name, Pretty Boy. I had people say to me one time, "Oh, these contractors don't like it because they hate the name." I'm like, okay, well, that's good to know. But anyway, yes, look, we have a product, Jerry. We have a product called Diff, and it's a wallpaper stripper, and it's literally flammable. It's flammable. and I was working with Dane one time, calls Paper. He's my buddy. And I'm saying, we're going to strip the wallpaper with Pretty Boy. And I saw her outside, and he wasn't convinced yet. So he put the Diff on the bathroom. And I walked in there and went, "Oh my God, just the toxicity of this product." And it doesn't even work that well because the actual formula, Jerry, goes back to when the paint, when the plaster or the glue had enzymes in it. So that's how old that formula is in. So we've needed a pretty boy for like literally 25 years when latex started becoming predominantly the paint and not the oils, right? And California is one of my worst selling states. In California, outlaws oil. People they'd rather sneak in a gallon of oil than try a latex. The new Poly 2K paints are wonderful for cabinets, but people won't try them. They won't try them. It's crazy.
But I think you're up. You know, we live in a throwaway society. So I think even recently in the last sort of 5, I wouldn't even go back as far as 10 years. It's only really in the last, say, 5 to 7 years that brushes, I've seen this huge spike in all these different brushes. You've got Axis, Oldfields, Arrowworthy,
McCormick's.
there's so many.
Yeah.
You've all
Yeah.
these up and coming brush makers. Purdy's been around since like Purdy to me when I first started out.
That
Purdy.
Maverick brush, that new Maverick brush.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, well, so you've got, for me, there's this huge spike, and they are not the type of brush you're gonna throw away. Whereas you still have this, I'd say there's almost like a scales. You've all, you've got companies. I wouldn't say companies. I'd say it's more, like we'll use it and throw it away and get a new box, and sure the customer will pay for it. And I'm guilty of that too when I first started out. But I think it's more whenever you realize how much money you're throwing down the drain. And that's not good business. A big shout out to Andrew Mackey and Garcia, who's just commented, hello and thanks for watching. I'm laughing because Garcia worked for me, and you're talking about diff, and we were spraying wallpaper a while back, and he had never used it before. I had it, and he walked in and was like, Jesus, Jerry, what? He couldn't believe how strong it was. It was lethal. And I don't know where that came from, but yeah, I think you're gonna be up against when it's easier just to everyone just throws everything away. And the thought of, bathing your brush, and I made a wee video a while back about putting the brushes to bed. I look after my brushes. I love my brushes. I have a big container, and I love being able to just pick it up, use it, and it's working nice. And the difference the Pretty Boy makes to the bristles, like it's night and day. There's no, I haven't used, you say about washing up liquid, and it is actually true. It's not the same. And I think anyone that has used Pretty Boy loves their brushes. When you put them in a wee bath of Pretty Boy, they're sitting mint. They're sitting so soft, ready for the next job. And even just eating away at the paint. And I actually use it as well for around the sprayers. It doesn't damage the casings. You're not using solvents. It's not wiping the paint off. And even just that final bucket through the sprayer, just putting a bit of Pretty Boy in, it just helps with the cleaning. But I think that is a huge problem, which is just like, we don't need it anymore. Throw it away.
Well, that's it's funny because you're seeing this this spike of women painters, and decorators in England and Ireland. I don't see many in Ireland, but I see a lot in England and America, and they look at Pretty Boy much more sensibly. They go, "Wait a second, it works. I'll try it. It's non-toxic, saves me money." But the men, some reason, fight it. But you know what really changed a lot of it was COVID. Because the brush went from, say, $12 a good brush to $25 a brush. Now people are looking at it. And what I do, by the way, I sent Kevin Hottie 100 of those.
Awesome.
So they're going to be, I'll be giving these out at your Paint It Forward to the guys.
Amazing.
So that'll make a gallon, right? So then they could try it for themselves. I like to make the gallon of product before, or 4 liters before you start, throw the rags in, and have this all day long. I call it prep for the mess, because the mess is coming to us painters. And we carry, when the client comes in, we're always covered in paint. It's on our brush. It's on our cars. It's everywhere, So
You
these are
could make
coming. So
you could make like a spray for the overalls so the paint
yeah,
doesn't go on the overalls and dirty them.
yeah.
But sort of when you started up Pretty Boy, what was probably the biggest hardship lesson you learned in the journey of develop? I know there's going to be loads, but what's that one thing in the development of pushing the brand that shaped you for the better? At the time, it would have scared the shit clean out of you, but when you look back, you go, well, that happened, and it made me a better person, businessman for it.
Well, I didn't quit. The thing is, nobody wanted the product for years. So I would paint in Manhattan. I'd get done at 4 o'clock. We'd have to be out of the buildings by 4. I'd come home, either hit the gym or get something to eat or do some yoga. And then I sold it online for 5 years. So I would pack bottles and I would write handwritten notes. And I knew it was not enough business to live off of. How am I going to make it to that next level? And that went on for 5 years, and it was exhausting. So from 2018 to 2000 and beginning of 23, I sold it online. And it wasn't, I never sold more than $6,000 in a month. And I'm thinking, how am I going to make a living off of this? So I started burning out. And my apartment got me had mold and it's got me sick. So I made this decision to leave Manhattan in 2020, end of 2022. And by the middle of 2023, I was right next door to a distributor. So I called them up. They're called Lancaster. And I said, can I come by and see you guys? So I ended up just showing them the product. And they absolutely go, we don't know. We don't know if it's going to work or not. So I said, come to our, our little buy-in show. And it was funny because it was meant to be like tonight, me and you being together on 11/11 was meant to be. But basically what happened was Shoreline was a company that made all these sandpaper apparatuses, right? Yeah. So they went belly up because they couldn't get their ship past the Suez Canal. And they were getting fined by all these companies because when you go to Home Depot and you don't fill the stock, they fine you. And so they went belly up, and then I got their booth. I got a free booth. I went in there. I showed the product. And I only think I sold maybe 600-700 bottles, maybe, 30, 40 cases of product, but it was just enough. Now it's starting to get in the paint stores. And now people are like, I see this guy, I see him on videos, and maybe I want to give this a try. So there was that, 2 years of development with nobody knows what you're doing. And then now you're 5 years on the market. So you're 7 years on the market with zero money. But what made me keep going was I was a professional painter too. And I knew how good it worked. And I knew eventually people were going to come my way. I knew that I knew the formula was too good. Like, it cleans everything. It's going to have to just hang in there, Brian. Just hang in there. So that was it, not losing my mind. And just recently, I'm in 4 countries now, and I'm starting to make a living off of it as I approach my 10th year.
Awesome.
So not giving up.
So baby steps.
Yeah, believing in your stuff. Baby steps. Believing in your idea, and also burning the boats. Burn the boats. You can't go back. There's no. When I left New York City, I left my business.
Burn the boats. Love it. Burn the boats, baby.
You can't go back. You can't go back. Yeah. Poof.
Let's go.
So when I left New York City, I was there, and it's maddening. You're sitting there in Seattle, Washington, and you're running out of money, You're on your own. You're by yourself. You don't know anybody. I live on the road. I've been living on the road for years. So again, it comes down to your deathbed. Do you want to regret this? Do you want to regret not doing this? So
On that, so you're on the road, like to a lot of people looking in. First, they'll go back because I think the brand itself, you're not just buying Pretty Boy, you're buying a bit of Uncle B's positivity, that energy. And I think that's what people are buying too. They believe it, they want it. You know, the industry itself can be, busy. Yeah. Many men do you have? Who cares? What are you driving? Don't give a shit. Whereas when you're on, you see a post from Uncle B, it's positive. I don't,
yeah,
and it's everybody loves that energy. I don't speak
yeah,
for everybody. I speak for myself. I love that energy. I said to you the other night, I love that positive energy. And I try and surround myself with people of a positive energy. And I try not to be in the room of anyone that is trying to be negative. Everyone's entitled to be negative, have a bad day, feel like shit, of course. But when I'm in the zone. I'm at work. I get to go to work. I always say that to anyone when we're at work and stuff. We get to do this, guys. Especially when it's a big sanding day and everyone's looking at each other going, "Oh, the fingertips are bleeding." And I'll come off and I'll go, "We get to do this. Isn't this awesome?" And like everyone will tell me to go, you know what? But I think it's the energy. I think as well, not just as a great product, but it's you and you are the brand, you're the marketing, you're chief marketer, CEO, CTO, or whatever, CFO, you're
DOO.
everything. So what is when it came to marketing, when did you realize that look, you're gonna do this. You are gonna be that guy that is in everyone's news feeds, on Instagram, everywhere. The paint farm, and just sort of spreading the love and spreading that positive energy. What made you realize this is it? That I can do this because men, women your age, I speak to, even some people I've offered to come onto the podcast who I'd love to learn more about have went, no way, and that's not me. I couldn't get in front of a camera. I mean, you were just like, let's do this, let's go. So could we talk maybe a bit about that, about the marketing side of things, where people are starting out on their own, they're maybe struggling to get work. You've been in that position too, but you also came up with a new product completely off the market over 10 years, and suddenly you found nearly that momentum of, where the marketing's working. It definitely is. That's why it's in these shops. That's why people are using it. So how did we get there?
yeah. Well, the product, once somebody brings this onto the job site, it's a great product, and there's nothing like it. It really is, again, the first paint, soap, and conditioner that we've ever had. You're using a dish soap, you're using something toxic. So once you get it on there, but how do you, like you said, how do you buy into Uncle B's thing? So, I did when I graduated college in 1990 from NC State, I went to a Halloween party and I was dressed as this character. It was called Homer Presley. It was Elvis's long lost ugly cousin with fake teeth, right? And it was a scream, right? I'll have to show you pictures. But some guy goes, "You got to go on stage and do that." And the next week I went into the comedy club and I wrote a skit for 3 minutes and I went up on stage. And I remember everything was red. It was like jumping out of an airplane. And I've jumped out of airplanes too. And all of a sudden I was like, I was changed forever. So when Instagram came around, I said, I can do this. I can do this. So, I love the saying, we're all prisoners of our own self-imposed limitations. If you
Absolutely.
say you can't do it, you can't do it. I
Yeah.
can't tell you, going back to Dane again, Dane came up with his own brand, Carlson Paint and Paper. Carlson Payton paper. And now he's getting funded by people and he's getting brands that want his time. And he's doing it. He's finally getting off the brush and he's traveling the world. And he just never gave up. And him and I have been trying to get people to come in front of the camera and step it up. You know what I mean? So for years you're kind of screaming into a big hollow and nobody hears you. And there's where the real work begins. Do you believe, like, it's kind of like floating off the coast of nowhere. You've left the shore, you're in this raft, and there's no coastline. And that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where you have to say, you know, I got to stick with this. I got to believe in this. What else am I going to do? Am I going to start again? Because every idea takes 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Every idea takes 10 years. So if you're going to turn around and Jerry, you're no longer going to paint these houses, but you're going to launch your own paint. You have to know that maybe you're 40 now, but by the time you're 50, you might be making money. So it really is, you know, and then to bring the positivity in there, you know, that just comes from within. You know, that's when I got sober at 49, I was the guy sitting on a bar stool that was bitter. You know, I can't make it. And, you know, I used to bitch at the bartender. He used to charge me too much. And, you know, he charged me too much. And finally, when I got sober, I said, you know, there's nothing holding me back now. There's nothing holding me back. And I want to travel the world. I want to have enough money. I want to live wherever I want to live. You know, and maybe a year for two, I'll have enough money where I can live in South America for a while. I can live in Thailand for a while. I can run my business. I don't want to get stuck in America right now. And I've been going to Ireland. I spent a month in England last year. I've been going to Amsterdam. I've been traveling the country. But you have to jump out of that plane. I hope I answered your question. But
I think you talk about being angry. I think, you know, I've definitely been there myself where I've been angry because, and I think a lot of the time it comes from a place of, I know I could be doing better and I'm being held back. And the sobriety thing rings home with me because when I was 28, 29, when Jenna was born, and realizing that was my first kiddo, and realizing that everything wasn't just the way it should have been in my head, and um, suddenly I wasn't the most important guy in the room. You know, when you're married and Danielle and me were living together, and we were, you know, going to the cinema, going for walks, going on holiday, having the crack, going out, and then suddenly this wee life is more important than me. And yes, that is the selfish thing. And yes, I am an asshole. But I was immature and a lot of growing up to do. And suddenly I wanted that attention. So working hard, I work hard all the time, working hard, building a business. And I just wanted then, I thought, well, look, what if I take the guys out for beers on a Friday? I'll pay for them. I just want company. I want to be the most important guy in the room. And it ended up, you know, trying to come to terms with, you know, a wee baby not knowing what was going to happen. And I started hitting the drink. You know, it wasn't a couple of drinks, it was a bottle of whiskey. It was not showing up, it wasn't coming home. I just didn't know how to deal with things. And a lot of men and women, well, I can only speak for myself, of course, but I do think it's not knowing how to channel those emotions, channel those thoughts. And, you know, it got to a point where it was St. Patrick's Day, and a couple of my friends were down in Londonderry, Stroke Derry, and I went down. I sort of invited myself, and that's about an hour and a half's drive. And I drove down and sort of landed, and I ended up getting so drunk I blacked out. And I woke up and went to breakfast with my friends. I know I'm going a bit deep here in the story, but I want to sort of. And my good friend said to me, he said, Jerry, are you all right? And he said, because I'm seeing a side of you that I don't know and I don't like. And I love you. But I think you know, this can't happen again. You know, we had to carry you back to the room, and I blacked out. I don't remember anything. I ended up, I hadn't spoke to Danielle, didn't know where I was, worried sick with a wee baby at home, and I literally cried the whole way up the road from where I was, and um, I sort of didn't like. This wasn't me. It wasn't a version of me I liked, but I knew that alcohol was starting to have a bit of a hold on me, and I realized that I needed to do something about it. And it was either continue the road I was on and lose, Danielle, maybe family, maybe my business, my home. Now, it wasn't that I was drinking every day. It was when I drank, and I just didn't have any rules. It was just, this is how it's going to be. And I ended up, I decided, no, I can't do this anymore. I'm not that. That's not Jer. That's not Jerry. And I gave it up for nearly 2 years. And I realized that I needed to be in a position where alcohol didn't take control of me, that I was always in control of alcohol. And I've never drank whiskey since. And now I don't drink to get drunk. I drink to enjoy a drink. And I'll never, once I feel, I start to feel it hits me, I'll stop, or I'll have a glass of water, or I'll have a zero just to make sure I'm all right. Because something I always hated, Brian, was when you went out for beers or the crack and you get so pissed that you didn't actually catch up with your friends, you didn't actually have any meaningful conversations, and you didn't get to enjoy the moment. And then you woke up a bloody hangover. And I think a lot of what we do, especially as you're working and not making money, or dealing with a customer that's a pain in the ass, or life happening, and you think that the alcohol's gonna numb the pain, and it doesn't. It's false. Go out for a walk, go for a run, speak to a friend, learn how to overcome the shit that you're facing, and do it without alcohol, and then have a drink when you have overcome it, and you've enjoy it. So I can certainly relate to that, and I'm glad I did it, because I love a drink, but I do it on my terms, and I don't do it to make an ass of myself, or let people down, or the kids, or not show up and I'm supposed to show up as a dad, or a business owner, or a husband. And I think again, I think that comes down to facing up to the shit you need to overcome and deal with, and not procrastinate. I went off on a long-winded one there, Brian, but I've just got to go where it takes us.
Yeah, it sure show.
So do you think then, from giving up the alcohol, that's when everything really properly changed, and you got your flow state, and you were just, let's go?
Yeah, well, so you talked about that blackout. I had about 4,500 of those.
You win.
And nobody picked me up. I laid on the gutter. I laid in construction sites. I lost bar fights. I won them. They told me I had a good time. So yeah, so between 45 and that ultimately 49, I was blacked out at least 300 times. So I could no longer do it anymore. So when you get sober and you really take it seriously, you either go to AA or you do it your way. And I did it spiritually. I became a yoga instructor. I became a meditation instructor. I'd seen a movie with Bill Murray called The Razor's Edge. And it was about a character named Larry Darrell that went out to find the meaning of his life. And I saw that when I was 23 years old. And at 49, 25 years later, I said, it's time for me to do that, to have my spiritual awakening. And what does that mean? That means going inward, sitting with yourself, learning how to meditate. Who am I? Sitting there, And your body's amazing. Once you get off the alcohol and you get about 3 or 4 months sober, then it starts feeding you this trauma. Okay, Jerry, here's our junior high school. Okay, Jerry, here's that love your dad never gave you. Okay, your mom was a drunk too and she ignored you. And you deal with it. You sit with it and you deal with it. That's the whole thing. You have to sit with your traumas before they leave you. So after 2.5 years of doing this, I was in India and Nepal, and that's when I said I need to go back to America and I need to start this paint cleaner idea. So you have to find peace to find your flow state. And a lot of guys try to do in the California sober, which I don't think works. You know what I mean? You have to be present. You have to get bored. You have to be with your shit. And then all of a sudden, on the other side of that is this beautiful, it's a real life. It's getting out of your head and getting into your heart. The head will kill you. And there's where the alcohol happens. When you drink, the ego takes over and becomes the ruler of your life. You know what I mean?
or the other head.
Yeah. So exactly. So yeah, the sobriety was everything. And a few times I fell off the path and I get back on. So it's been a 12.5 year journey, and you would not know anything about Pretty Boy or Uncle Brian if I was still drinking. You wouldn't know who I was.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, and that's amazing, and I think it's quite inspiring too, because a lot of people, even myself at times, where I think, is that it? You know, is this all I've got? And the biggest shift for me was whenever I stopped being a selfish asshole and started thinking more about others and giving. And I'm a big believer in, if you give, not the receipt, but you truly give, your time, your expertise, check in with people, help with charity, be there for others, it comes back tenfold, hundredfold, thousandfold. It's, people talk about karma. I think you're in control. I think that, you're in control to be able to pick up that phone and check in on somebody, to give your time to, just stop in and help someone out, or be there for people. And instead of I used to be very much, Brian, where, I'm too busy. I'm working. I'm too busy. Like, where my own parents would be like, "How are you, son? It's been 6 weeks. You keep well?" And I used to just like, "You don't understand. I'm just so busy. Like, you're the only person on the planet." When actually there's all these people out there that are just there to be, to listen, to help, to have the crack, to, you sort of can get very easily distracted with life and the noise and the shit that you don't that's actually bringing you a lot of the the problems. Whereas sitting down, having a good food, having a good company can change your whole day, your week, your month, being surrounded by good people and being able to.
How did you make that transition from a guy that was selfish to a guy that realized that gratitude is one of the turning points? It's a Buddhist thing too.
Yeah. I think it came down to business. So I used to run my business all about, for me. I want to make the most money. I want to keep everybody at the lowest amount of money. I want all the work, so I'll accept that do the work much cheaper than everybody else, so they didn't get it. And that brought so many problems. And it was actually when I started to sit down, I'm trying to think of the book. But it was all about, helping other people find what they're after, find out what they need, what they want, and help them get it. And they'll help you get yours. And it really, because I thought, well, what do most people want? They want certainty. They want a good life. They want to see their family. Whereas I was running a business where it was 12-hour days. It was non-stop. It was just I was messaging every night, trying to organize the teams, you name it. And suddenly when I started listening, started actually listening to the guys working for me, to Danielle, things just changed. It's hard to explain, but it starts where the universe starts helping you and everything sort of starts falling into place. It doesn't happen overnight, but whenever you start saying to the guys, right, how about we get you on subcontractor model, start earning more money, that'll help you, that'll help take stress off me. Then it was right. Well, Danielle was taking all the load with the girls, running the business, the house, the kids. Where Danielle coming home a bit earlier to help with dinner, having dinner with the kids made me happier. Um, and just being present
Yeah.
instead of out just thinking I need to do all this for me, and ultimately it gave me nothing back. So I think whenever I realized it was it was reading books. Reading books ultimately helped me. I can't think of the exact books that it was, but it was more the point of whenever you help others with what they're trying to achieve, that'll ultimately help you get what you need,
Yeah. You got to be in service. You
yeah.
learn you have to be in service. If you're going to have a fulfilling life, you have to serve others. And when you get away from your ego-driven life, like
That's right.
when I was a drunk, all you want to do is get high, high, high. You're miserable. You're miserable. You're going from hangover to drunk, and you're not doing anything to deserve any kind of praise. You're just sitting in a bar like I was. So the one Buddhist taught me, he said, if whatever you want, you got to help somebody else get. And
That's
I
right.
remember and I remember walking into my real estate office shortly after I got sober, maybe 1 year later, and there was a guy sitting there in 2016. Do you want to allow streaming? The guy was sitting there in 2016. So I was 2 years sober, and the Buddhist just told me this. He said, "Help this guy," and I was looking for my next thing. What am I going to do with my life? And sure enough, I asked him if he ever meditated. And he said, no. I said, well, there's a free class at my spiritual center. Would you go if I get you comped? It was $250. I got him comped. He went there. He, shortly after that, got sober. He quit his job. He lost 30 pounds. He got a new job. I watched his whole life change in front of me. And this started all with just something I wanted to help. So, yeah, once you get out of that selfish mind frame, you fool the camera back and you realize, okay, I got to be grateful. I have a shower. I have food.
Yeah.
You're never going to be good in your life if you're ego driven and you're myopic in your thinking, and that just and then you're surrounded by those type of people too. You're not really surrounded by. You
Yeah, I
never
think you're
listen.
not. I think you're not really trying. It was all about the ego. You're not really. You're pushing people away. You're not bringing people in. You know, and I look back and I can now identify why a lot of the things happened. Like I blamed everybody else, but the only person I wasn't blaming was myself. And being able to say that and be able to say, look, um, you're not always the problem, but you're a huge part of this problem. And we're in an industry of relationships, and I think that if you can build relationships and be a good person, be honest, help, assist, naturally you'll get that back. And that's from the academy when I started it up in 2021. The friendships I've made along the way, helping others get what they need, earn more money, make things easier. Being able to call and a lot of some of the guys to help me out with work now, and building that community as such. And I think that was a huge thing because I was very much the closed book. Didn't want anyone in, didn't want anyone to learn what I was doing. But whenever I actually that's how you grow. It's how you grow any business is people, you know.
Absolutely.
And I think that was the big mindset shift was people. It's gonna help me, you know, have a more enjoyable experience, having those relationships to be able to, ring somebody up and say, look, what would you do? How would you wallpaper this? How would you go about it? Or what product would you use to spray this substrate? And having these amazing painters, decorators to call on, and that's why, that's where the Paint It Forward came from was Northern Ireland doesn't have anything. It didn't have anything. And Paint It Forward was all about bringing painters together who've never come into a community environment before, but do it in a way that's helping others. And by doing that, we help ourselves by forging relationships, having fun. And this year, um, you're coming over. We've got Dylan coming over from Florida as well, which is fantastic, and you're gonna be very welcome. We're all being well. We're organizing on the Saturday night. We're gonna get some food, and we're gonna have invite everybody to come and have the crack, even some of the partners and maybe some kiddos afterwards. But in terms of community, and building that brand and the Pretty Boy brand, and the relationships, how do you cope? You must give out a lot of yourself, a bit like the casino, you're giving out all these chips every single day and maybe not seeing the return. Does that have a negative impact on you when maybe you're helping so many people or you're building relationships and this the energy needed to keep that machine running, which is Pretty Boy Online?
Yeah, no, I don't expect anything back.
Yeah.
I give it, and if it comes back, it comes back. Maybe in the early days when I was still newly sober, I expected stuff back. But now, as I grow, I'm 61 now, and I want to see people win. And I don't have a wife. I don't have any kids. I don't have really any debt or mortgages. So these are my family. These people are my family. So I wake up in the morning and I grab my phone and I have, I go to the Instagram and I look at the messages and I have all these messages, and then I'll talk to people. And, recently we just did a 90-day sobriety thing we called Wet Paint Dry January. And every
Wow.
day I left a message for 100 days. It does quite the opposite for me. I don't find it, the hardest thing I have is you have the Paint It Forward and I have the Pretty Boy Paint Festival, right? Mine's coming up July 24th and 25th. I have to get a respectable amount of people there in order to charge these sponsors for these booths. So I want them to have enough painters to feel like their, $500 booth is worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the hardest part. But man, I love the painters, and they come and go, and some of them break my heart. I've had guys where I helped them get sober. They were online for 3 years, and then poof, they're gone. I said to one guy one time, I said, "Where did you go?" And he says, I don't want to be on Instagram anymore. And I
Yeah.
said to him, "What does that have to do with our friendship?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Poof. So no, it doesn't burn me out at all. I love it. I've been watching this wonderful explosion of women in paint, and they've been really helping me. Christina Cutter and Ronnie with Tin Lid, and Nikki with Rami and painting, and Layla up in Canada. And there's some really, Dane helps me, and there's so many, Matt. This summer I'm going to live with Matt MF Paint. He has a big spray booth and an extra bedroom. So I need people. You need people. And when you
Yeah.
live on the road, you really need people. So sometimes these relationships, they fall off, but most of the people don't demand much from me at all. You know what I mean? They're not really pushing me to be anything.
So to a lot of people, you have the life in terms of traveling all over the world, really. I mean, the States alone's absolutely huge, but you're constantly on the road. You're traveling to Amsterdam, the UK, Ireland, you name it. Do you talk about it's awesome, you love it, but like for me, if I'm in New Zealand for 3 weeks or if I just can't wait to get home. Like home is home. What is home to you?
I broke
What
that mold.
what's your happy place?
Well, the happy place is creating this brand that will feed me for the rest of my life. Building a brand that will allow me to live in any country I want to live in. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money. Let's just say after I pay all my bills, there's $5,000 a month. That's enough to live in Thailand or India and stuff. So when I left New York City in November of 2022, I was out of sorts for 2 years because what you're talking about is this image of home. And that was New York City for me because I moved to New York City at 40 and I left at 58. And it was the longest place I'd ever lived besides my childhood home of Virginia Beach. And for 2 years, I was out of sorts. And all of a sudden it broke. And there was no longer that image. It was wherever I am is home. So the flow state is just continuing to get up and do the job and make sure that that the pavement is going to be there. And sometimes it's not there. Sometimes there's, this is the first year that, like last year, UK ordered 20,000 bottles. And this year, they're not selling as much. So that money's not there. So, but now all of a sudden, I'm seeing the domestic sales in the States, and I have a new distributor. They're called All Pro, show up. So you really have to have faith that you're on the right path. And at the end of the day, this is what you want. And there's where the meditation comes in. There's where the sobriety comes in, because you're not kidding yourself. You got the needle on the right record, and it's the right path. You just have to stay true. Almost like that guy or that girl that goes to Hollywood and they start on those small parts and then they get the medium parts and then they get the movies or the series. And the people go, how did that happen? Was it an overnight success?
No. A lot of jigsaw pieces have to come together to make the picture, and I suppose I'm seeing now a lot of painters, even in the UK, where they're now side hustling, painting companies or painter decorators. They're now bringing out brushes or they're bringing out sanding pads. They're starting maybe a masking gun or a masking tape holder, and they're starting to be more creative in terms of side hustles. But this is something you've done, and I suppose for those thinking about doing something like that and just starting, and maybe they're questioning their why they're doing it, or is this worth it? You're sort of testament to where, look, it's not an overnight success. Like, we're in a world now where everybody wants to be successful overnight, and it's bullshit. It doesn't happen. And I think when you are starting to commit yourself to something like that, it's a bit like the academy. The academy for me is something I thoroughly enjoy. I love it. It's the passion. I love my job, but my passion is teaching and helping others learn and upskill. And that's not a 4-person per day course every day. It's something that I do when I can make it work, when I want to do it, when I can schedule it, when it all fits into place, and I can get I can give the maximum um experience to the attendee, and a lot of, like, I've been told before, you need more people, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that, and it's very easy to get sucked into the how people think something should be because they've seen it, and it works for them and it's great. But for me, I think I've always been that sort of, when everyone runs right, I go left. And I've always been like that. I've always just wanted to do things my way. It's taken me, a long time. That was one of the things. I went to Nick Slavic's retreat, and that was my ask. Was I was struggling to come to terms with how I was going to navigate my business. Paintworks NI, a successful, awesome company that was generating a lot of money, and also trying to have the academy at the same time. And I was conflicted as to what do I do here. If I go to the academy full time, I lose Paintworks. Or I'll not be given 100% to the company, which is I call it the ATM machine. Everyone needs an ATM machine, and that funds then the other stuff that you want to do and enjoy. But it was the guys at the retreat were like, Jerry, do both. Why do you need to do it full time? Why do you need to do this the way you see other people doing it? And I just being able to be in that room and to be able to speak to those people that were looking in at a third party perspective that have no emotion, but be able to just talk to you as a human on a level that understand. And that was it for me. I was able to say, like, you know what, actually, yeah, I'm gonna do this how I want to do it. And I love it. I love it, every bit of it. And I think it's so easy to be conditioned in this day and age, it really is.
You get out there and you try an idea. My first idea was Pretty Boy Pros, right? I have my own YouTube channel. I learned how to edit. I hired an editor to teach me how to edit, and I went out there with a camera and I started in New Jersey, and I made all these YouTube channels. And I thought, oh my God, everybody's going to tune in, right? Everybody's going to love this painter on painter, and it didn't go anywhere. It didn't go anywhere, and it was thousands of dollars. It was thousands of dollars. And then I started the Pretty Boy Paint Festival, and I thought, my God, this thing is going to be bigger than freaking sliced bread.
Yeah.
And it did okay. It makes me a couple grand after I pay all the food and the T-shirts and for everything else and the travel and the hotels. I help a few guys come, and I let a few guys come. And now this year it's free. And then you realize, okay, but when I left that money job, which was painting, it got real scary. You know what I mean? And I had to leave New York City. It was time to leave it. So that was my bread and butter. That'd be like Paintworks and leaving it. So I don't know if that was the smartest idea, but it really forced me to see if I could get it going. And I would dive in. Dane, I lived with Dane for 8 months and we did paint jobs. I lived with Matt and we did paint jobs. I used to drive up to Massachusetts and do paint jobs. So it is that balance. And most of our ideas, to be honest with you, don't make anything money. They don't make money. You know what I mean? And then
yeah,
if you get lucky, like the guy with the paint pail. He makes the paint pail, and he's in all the Sherwins, and starts with the coffee can, and then they want to make a paint pail with that was one of the few success stories. But I've been around dozens and dozens of guys with dozens and dozens of inventions, and most of them don't get that next level up.
Yeah.
Grant, my friend Grant, is doing stop loss bags, where he makes the bag, you get the paint out of the can,
Yes.
it gives you the funnel, and that's starting to go. He's starting to get the right salesman. He's starting to create it. But the problem is you run into the painter who tries to be an entrepreneur. Some of them go on Shark Tank and they do a little thing. And the guy that had the brush holder to keep the brush going and keep it fresh in between lunch, those guys had a run for a while. But you really, really got to want this jump. And then, like, for example, if you would have given up Paintworks and started doing the Academy full time, like Jeremy does, right, with the sprayers, and Ian does with the sprayers, they teach full time, right?
That's
You
right.
really,
Yeah.
you really have to bring in some people. You really have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I think it's sort of it's a fork in the road, isn't it? It's where right, let's cowboy up. We have to make this work now. And um I mean the guys have incredible, both incredible companies
Yeah.
and academies have been to both. And but for me, I think it's just I sort of I like what I have, and it works for me.
Yeah.
One day, yes, maybe go full time at the academy, but I think I enjoy what I do too much. I enjoy being out in the tools, meeting customers, and working the business. And I think, but I know if I did somehow, I've thought about it. I've thought about selling paintworks. I've thought about, maybe just letting it go, maybe giving it, selling it off and going 100% full tilt at the academy. But the more I think about it, I'm just like, nah, I think I'm gonna just baby steps and work the academy up as it's, getting busier and busier. And I've only started advertising last year, but um, it was always word of mouth, which suited because it was only getting in a certain amount of people. But I think it was like you say there, it takes time, and I realized that it's a slow game, and you can rush it, but you'll fall on your face. You can try and push something that's just it's not there. You gotta build, you gotta get to know the community, you gotta let people know the crack and where you are and what you're doing. But what's the goal for Pretty Boy? What's your vision for the next sort of 5 years? What's the dream? Because obviously you've got all pro. Is that
All Pro is the newest distributor.
yeah,
They're a buying group. They brought me on in the Northeast, so there's 13 states. They bought a modest amount of bottles, and I'm going to be meeting with one of the salesmen tomorrow on calls and see what's the best way. I'm going to be up there all after Europe after I leave you guys,
awesome.
and I'll be going to. There's only one way to really get Pretty Boy going, and that's to get in the store, hold the packet up, say try it. Use it on your job. It's going to keep you safe. It's going to save you money. You give them a little bit of literature, and then they come back and they buy a bottle, and that's how it gets done. There's no shortcuts. Then of course, it's gotten to the point now where, I'm in hundreds and hundreds of stores, and you get lucky. Like Deluxe last year bought on a case for 225 stores. And that was our largest deal. We sold 6,000 bottles to them. Access to Core did. But, my goal is to get this up to a point where, I can run it from anywhere. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I'm at a point now where, one distributor is selling over 1,000 bottles a month. And Access was selling about that. And you get Canada selling about that. And you get 4,000 or 5,000 bottles a month selling. Then you can start, okay, I'm going to live in India for a month. I'm going to live here for a month. And then maybe in 10 years from now, when I'm 70, maybe you look at selling it. I have a new brand coming out called Uncle Brian's, and that's taking a similar solution into the all-purpose market. So that's going to be coming out. I love to create products. I don't really like to market them. But until that thing shows you, I have another company that wants to possibly license it for their cleaning products. So
Yeah.
that could be another one. So, and yeah, so, this is my retirement. I don't have any other retirement. My Social Security, that'll be what, $1,500 a month. That's not enough to live off of in America. So I'm hoping in the next couple of years, get it up higher. I'd love to crack Europe. I'd love to crack Europe big time, but we're not liked right now with who's running our country. Not to get political, but I talked to some guys in Germany and they said, don't even bother. Nobody's buying American products right now. Don't even bother. So when
Wow.
that clears out, I want to get in there. I want to get into Germany. I want to get into France, and I get to travel there, get into Sweden. But, I'm very blessed that, Access to Core picked me up and put me in, 550 stores. between Ireland and England. I get messages every day from guys in the UK, and I have new friendships there in Ireland. And I go see Sean. Last time I stayed with Sean and his mother in Dublin, it was wonderful. To wake up and his mother's, hey Brian, would you like a cup of coffee there?
Big shout out to Sean. Sean's got the hike this Saturday. We're doing the hike up Kilpatrick. A group of Irish painters are climbing for As I Am Autism charity. It's going to be the first real. I think it's the first. There's been a couple of meetups, but this is a big one. I think we're almost at €10,000, which has been generated by donations. So the donation links are all over the posts. So please keep donating. But we're super pumped. Everyone's super excited. I have got the van all cleaned. We're going as a family down to Westport. I've never been to Westport, and I've never been to the west of Ireland, actually, in fairness. So it's going to be a proper road trip. We're all going as a family for 3 or 4 days, and yeah, I mean, speaking of community, you're coming over. We've then got big month for community-driven events here in Ireland. We've got the hike on the 2nd of May, and then we've got Painted Forward on the 30th of May. So we're gonna be driving that. But how important are these community events to the industry, do you think, Brian?
I follow my heart. I don't really look at any kind of map sheets. You don't really know how they pan out. But like you said, people are watching my lifestyle. You're looking at me and they're going, I like that guy. He's traveling. I like that guy. He's happy. I like that guy because he answered my email or my voicemail. You know what I mean? The phone has been, a big interruption in our lives. And I used to be the best joke teller I ever knew. I'm a very good joke teller, but now it's gone. Nobody wants to hear a joke. They look at the phone and go, are you almost done? Is it going to take long? Because I got to get back to this. So these get-togethers are really good ways to get to know people and get to know their lives. And I don't give a shit if they bought Pretty Boy or not. I want to know what makes them tick. I like people. I like people, and I want to know what makes them smile. I'm a painter myself. I paid my bills for many years as a painter, and everything that I created with Pretty Boy, that initial $40,000 that I had to come out of my pocket with chemists and bottles, marketing and websites and travel, that was all made as a painter. So it's a real joy for me to come with you guys and just, I'll be on brush cleaning duty or whatever, because I did it for the PCA twice now, right? They have a Painted Forward, and I got my wire brush and I got my Pretty Boy, and they go, we're out of brushes. We need more buckets. I got it. I'm in the soup kitchen right there, cleaning it all up with Pretty Boy. And I'm laughing, and Nick Slavic turns around and looks at me and goes, thanks for being here, man. So
Regimental.
And then after that, I go to Edinburgh, and I'll be over there with Stuart McLean, and he's going to bring me in the Midlothian store on the 1st. Excellent. And then we're driving down and doing the Trade Decorators Live in Bolton. So that's going to be the whole trip. Kevin Hoddy's going to drive me around. Yeah, it's going to be cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting Kevin. I think Kevin's going to be on the podcast on the 14th of May. Actually, he's now taking your original slot. So I'm looking forward to talking to Kevin all about what he does.
What a sweetheart!
Kitchen refinishing.
Let me tell you a Kevin Hoddy story. Him and I were hanging out one day. He said he was in a bar outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in America. And it was an Irish pub, and it was St. Pat's Day. And the bartender looks at him and goes, we've never had a guy from Ireland in here.
It's always the way. Always the way.
He drank free all night long.
But here it's gonna be great crack. It's gonna be great to have you over, and we have some amazing painters and characters signed up. We've got Crown, we've got Axis, We've loads. We've got
Pretty
Tony.
boy.
Tony White's gonna
Tony,
be there as
Tony
well.
White's gonna be
We've
there.
got loads happening, and
Love
we've
it.
got
Love that guy.
DJs. We're gonna have good food. And is there anything we haven't touched on that you may want to talk about or add before? I know I've taken up an hour and a half of your time, but we've touched on some awesome subjects. Um, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think we cut. I mean, I just, I get to meet a lot of people out there. And, if you do have a dream of wanting to bring a product to market or a dream of owning your own business, if I can help you, let me know. Just message me. And I have, 61 years of experience. Pretty Boy was not my first brand. I had a product in the 90s called Car Boom, and my brothers and I invented it for energy gel, and we made a mess of it. And it was a 10-year car crash, and it was ugly. And I survived it. And now this is just me. So, yeah, if there's anybody out there that wants to start a business, that wants to know what maybe is entailed for them, I'm happy to help. So they can message me, Uncle Brian, and say, hey, what do you think about inventing this new paint roller that does this? You know what I mean? And I'll help them. No, but no, you covered everything. And lastly, if you're out there struggling mentally, you're really, really hurting, reach out to somebody. We're losing a lot of painters, and the talented touch. I mean, the talking tradesman. Excuse me, the talking tradesman is been wonderful to have that guy out there. I'm going blank. What's his name? Jesus.
Russ.
Yeah, Russ. Russ out there helping people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're thinking about taking your life and you're that bad, because painting can be dangerous because you get by yourself and you're around your own thoughts, and you and I have been through the shit with it. So yeah, that's the last thing I want to say.
The thing was, that's what I mean. I love podcasts and listening to Russ and Talking Tradesman, Decorators Den. You've got so many, Dire CEO. You've so many different podcasts and books I listen to, and just that bit of company, and just listen, hearing other stories. For me, I just hope that the Behind the Brush is all about learning about the people behind the business, the name. I look at all these amazing people in our industry and their social medias and thinking, wow, awesome work. Love their positivity, or I just love how they do things. I love to get to know them a bit more. And I've spoken to a couple of guys even recently, Brian, who've said, why would you want to speak to me? I don't really I don't really think I have a story or anything to add. And I'm like, everyone has a story.
Of course.
Everyone has a story. Everyone has it's also about the crack. I could tell you so many stories about mistakes, effing up, loads of things. And it's like, that's the beauty of it. And there's so many people that I've reached out to, and there's so many awesome people coming on that no one's heard of, no one knows but that's what's good about it, is that you want to get to know these people, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And every single episode, there's been something, we've been able to pick from it, something that somebody's added, and there's a lot of value in it. And if it just helps somebody get their day in, laugh, maybe cry, maybe just know that they're not the only one. And sometimes it's just being able to listen,
Yeah, a lot of guys will listen to, because I had the Pretty Boy Pros. By the way, if anybody want to watch those episodes, they're great. Pretty Boy Pros, PROS, and guys just say to me, as they probably say to you now, I just put your thing on while I'm painting, and I love listening to it.
Yeah.
So that's it is. We're a unique breed. Like why did I always gravitate towards painting when my dad was more of a saw and plumber guy? I never liked the saws. I never liked the noise. But the brush was a meditation to me. I think sometimes the brush is needed. Maybe our minds are moving too fast. But when you're moving that brush, it's a total meditation. You're concentrating. It's got a sound. It's got a movement. and is focusing you into your happy place. And at the end of the day, we're really good at it, and we can change somebody's day and making
Yeah.
somebody happy with colors, and that
Yeah.
stupid that stupid mold is gone, and that crack is gone, and that ugly yellow is gone, and so
It
it's a
was
real honor. It's a
we
real
were doing a
honor.
job. We were doing a job this week, and real good customers of mine. Have been my customers for over 10 years now. I believe it's crazy, but we did their house last year. Beautiful home they built, and they had a leak in the ensuite, and it destroyed the entire ceiling in the kitchen. And it took us 2 days to sort it, and it was they just couldn't believe it. They just couldn't believe how good um I got it back, and it was just that whole, bringing her home back, getting her home back to its natural state again, feeling like a home. And, there's a lot of satisfaction whenever they said, look, we knew you were the only guys to sort it. We knew you could get it back like brand new again. I mean, there was a huge holes, cut out the plaster board, you name it. And, yeah, there's a lot of satisfaction, I think, dealing with customers. As I say, that relationship you build over time, and they just trust you. You're like, how's things, and how's the dog? How you keeping, and the family or the kids, and it's there's a lot of satisfaction, and I think there's nothing better than having a good customer. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. And I was at a paint store 2 days ago, giving out samples, and I met this guy our age. He's probably between my age and your age, so you're what, in your 40s,
Aye, yeah, yeah. I'm
and I'm
39, Brian.
and you're 39, and I think he was four, and I'm 60, so he was like
Uh,
52. So in between our age, right? I'm trying to backpedal here.
I have this. It is recorded. You said
Yeah,
our age.
yeah. I've insulted the host, and the
Brilliant, brilliant.
so, but he said to me the other day, he goes, "Why would I make a video? Why would I ever do that?" And I said, "Because people are from the house. They don't know who you are. It's very intimate. So if
That's
I
true.
can look at you and see you and you're a well put together person, that's one more reason I'm going to hire you.
Yeah,
Painting's only part of it. I got to put
yeah,
up with you for 3 days or 4 days." And that's how I was able to be successful, because people like me having me in their house. I wasn't the greatest painter in the world. I did okay. I'd give myself maybe a B minus. I never learned how to paint professionally. I hope the paint stuck on the walls and stayed there, but I always brought a good attitude. You know what I mean? I
yeah,
always brought a good attitude, and that's something that I'll leave people with. Get out, be take chances. Take chances in life. Take
yeah,
chances.
yeah,
Be brave. Do hard things. Do hard
yeah.
things. Yeah.
Get comfortable with uncomfortable is one I
Yes.
really enjoy. And another one is, everyone in the world deserves to be happy. So, what makes you happy, and go grab it with both hands and go get it. And life's too short. It really is. And you gotta go for it. And, because we're just speaking to the wrong people. I'm gonna do this, gonna do this, and it's your parents that go, don't think that's a good idea, it's a terrible idea, don't do it. Or a friend that laughs at you, or your group of painters, you're working on a team, a squad of painters, and you've an idea doing this, that, and the other. You're an idiot. Don't do that. That's a stupid idea, and you just condition yourself by listening to the people that you're surrounding yourself by. And again, you're the average of the people you spend the most time with. And I think that was another thing for me back a few years back, was just surround myself with the wrong mindset. Good people, just the wrong mindset. And excuse me, the another big shift was, I started to get comfortable with my own company. and being happy with just me and my thoughts and believing that self-belief to go, it's only me who's going to get you there. Yes, you need good people around you, but it's up to me to get out there, get that resilience, get that strength when you're having that bad day, that bad job, that you're not getting any money out of that job, it still needs finished. It's worked through the bullshit, the hard times, because that's where the growth is. That's where the building blocks of life is, and we all have to graduate. My uncle said it recently, from the University of Hard Knocks. Some make it, some don't. Life gets them and crushes them. But ultimately, if you can get yourself through that university and come out the other side, you'll be a better person for it, because that's what life is, in my opinion. It's
Absolutely.
just constant, it's like, if you want to be, if you ask to be, stronger or more resilient, you will get situations that make you become more resilient. So you can't ask for something and you can't put the work in. So you gotta be prepared to put the work in. And a lot of us, because it's a slow journey, it's a slow journey, give up too quickly. And they want to pay that £10,000 or dollars for the get rich quick program, when actually it's never going to happen. It might help,
Yeah, I
but
think a lot of it has to be. I think success also has to be. I just was reading David Goggins' book.
both
You
of them
can't hurt me,
can't hurt me.
and the 40% of success is where most people lie. And how do you cut 60%? And then I watched that documentary, Don't Die, about Brian Johnson, who quit his job and starts doing all these things, the longevity of his life. You really have to demote your brain. You really have to know that sometimes you have to go to war with your mind.
That's right.
And it's really important that you take good care of yourself. And if you're on the Stairmaster and you only do 20 minutes, why don't you try doing an hour and telling your mind to shut the hell up and do it? And what happens is you realize that when you do something great, besides what you said, you hear all this negativity. You can't do that. If you're willing to do something just in a standing of, maybe you get your black belt, maybe you run a marathon, maybe you hike, what you're talking about, hiking these mountains, do something that really exerts you, where you want to stop and you tell your mind, get in the back seat, we're doing this. That starts to give you the confidence that you can do it. And one of the greatest things about getting sober for me was that I was no longer in the pub. And the pub are full of negative fucking people. You know what I mean? Everybody sits in there waiting for their life to begin. They're hoping some beautiful girl, some beautiful guy walks in. Hey, let me take you away from all this.
Never happens.
Never happens.
And most of the time you have to go to the clinic.
Huh? Or it's a punch up at 1 o'clock in the morning when the girls are gone, right? You're the reason why my life sucks. I'm gonna bash your head in. So
100%.
that you really, those people, I love what Bob Dylan says. If you have a dream, keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Because you start telling people about your dream, they're just gonna chainsaw it to death. So I don't tell that many people about my dreams. They don't understand it. I mean,
no one understands it.
No, how did I get myself off that bar stool? 49 years old. I was drinking 12 hours a day. 12 hours a day. I was my girlfriend had dumped me. I was miserable. I was no money. And then you just go, let's go. We can do it. We can do it.
Who's going to carry the boats, Brian? Who's going to carry the boats?
That's it. I love that guy. He changed my life because he was the only guy. Like, I'm not a religious guy. I'm a spiritual guy. And he made me realize that, wow, we got a lot more in the tank than we think we do. We have a lot more in the tank than we think we do.
Yeah.
I mean, you could paint for 3 days straight if you had to, right?
Oh, done it.
Yeah.
Me and another guy, we did it for 34 hours straight. We worked once. And that's that. Like, it was so stupid, but it was just the way it worked. All this stuff had to get done. And we were up in Bangor or Belfast, and then we drove to Dublin, then we drove back. We had to do this, had to hand over. And there's no one else could have done that with me at the time. And there was some stories, but we 34 hours, and I think we went to the G-Lux Academy the day after. We got a couple of hours sleep. But I think, you talk about David Goggins, like, books have helped me become this version that I like, and it's not finished. It's just we're at a
Getting started.
15.01, and maybe, we're only getting started. Somebody messaged me on TikTok the other night saying they knew me from childhood or the town I grew up in. And it was great what I was doing and the videos and stuff and how far I've come. And I said, I actually only feel like I'm getting started, because you get the point where you're saying, well, I've overcome that. What else can I do? Where else can I go with this? And you keep developing, you keep building the muscle and the mind and the body. But when it comes to David Goggins, I was working in Dublin in a hotel. It was 110 rooms. We should have had 6 people on site, and there was me and Louis. I was ringing Danielle saying, we need resources. We got to get more people here, or we're going to get in trouble. Like, they're going to kick us off. This is a huge contract. And Louis was looking at me. You could see I was a wee bit wound up. I was a wee bit high strung, and I was listening to David Goggins, and I said, fuck it, Louis. Do you know what? We're just going to do it. And me and Louis, David came down and joined us about a week after. But me, Louis, and David done that entire contract, and we had a system. And it was one of the biggest wins of in terms of in business, of overcoming something. And I think a lot of us suffer from, we think we need more help than what we actually need. We've conditioned that, what, I'll hire somebody to do that. Or we're actually, if you want it done, just get it done and make it happen. And we done that contract, and we actually finished it like 3 weeks ahead of schedule. And the only reason I know that was back in 2023 or 4. And because the previous year we did it with 6 people, the exact same amount of rooms. And that was one of the biggest lessons for me in business, which was, do you really need that extra help? Do you really need that amount of people to get that job done? Or do you just work a wee bit harder and smarter and keep or make it happen? And my guys made a lot of money. Those 2 guys made a lot of money. I made a lot more money, and we had the best time. We had the best time. And I think a lot of, you sort of, when you start off on your own, you've only got yourself, and then you become where you start taking on help, and you become a wee bit, well, they can do it, or he can do the sanding, or we'll get somebody in to do that, and we'll get somebody in to do this. When actually, just take a minute sometimes and just check where you're at in your business. Are you losing money with all this additional labor? And do you need to just take it back to basics, go a wee bit slower, and build with intention, I suppose. Build with a wee bit more intention, a wee bit more clarity, and know your numbers, and have the right people with you to carry the boats, and that takes me back to David Goggins, have the right people carrying them boats with you, because if you don't, they'll walk away and you'll be left covered in the boat, crushed. But what a book. Yeah, I've read both. And
what's the other one called?
There's you've got me on the spot. Can't hurt me, and never finished.
Okay, never finished. Yeah, I haven't read that one. I'm gonna get. Well, when I got sober, I looked outside and I'm like, how am I gonna do this new life? How am I gonna do it? I can't. I'm so afraid of the life because I don't have the alcohol anymore. And I saw what he was doing, and it just made sense. It just made sense to me that we have a deep, like, you're not in the mood to do something. Who cares? Just do it. And that's how I got out of New York City. That's how I created this product. And that's how I continue to grow in this product. I just make myself do it. I went over to Amsterdam last year and I spent a couple $1,000s over there and met a bunch of people, and it didn't go anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. But but I did it. And so all of a sudden, maybe somebody else will come in, and
Yeah.
there'll be a few guys that go, "Oh, I saw that product before."
Yeah.
I mean, I started Pretty Boy with one guy in Ireland. It didn't go anywhere, and I tried one guy in England. And before I had any companies, I don't know what makes us stay with something and other people don't. But man, that's something they don't teach you in business school, is how healthy are you before you start? Are you getting drunk every night? Are you getting stoned every night? Are you in a relationship that's toxic and you're going to start a business from that standpoint? That's the muddy waters to be standing in to build a business. So that's another one thing that people don't understand, is that you have to be healthy or somewhat healthy to start a business, because you're going to be the only one to believe in it. And how the hell are you going to believe in it when you're at the pub every night? You know what I mean?
I think there's the opposite side of that, is when you do make it, and then there's the self-sabotage.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that too. Where, suddenly I thought I didn't deserve it. I felt guilty with making a lot of money in one job, where I felt like, this is wrong. Maybe I feel, I should maybe tell the customer here, have some money back. But actually, that was really what I should have been charging all the time. The other times I was losing. But my point is, I think, even I spoke to a painter just before Christmas, and he said, um, I made a lot of money in that job. I feel a bit, because I was helping him, and he got it done ahead of schedule, and he sort of said, made a lot of money there. I'm maybe gonna have to pretend to work for 3 or 4 days to drag the job out. And I was like, but it's a win-win. The job's done on budget. You got it done sooner. The project can move faster, and that's because of your skill set, your craft, your mindset, bringing in the right help. That's a good thing. And it was just that conditioning of what I do here, and I think I certainly, once I started to get things right, I found that hard, which was making money. And no one really talks about that, which is, when you start making money, it's like, right, what I do now, to pretend to buy cars, to let everybody know that I'm making money, to go buy a bigger house, to let people see that I've made more, or do we start putting the money to work, and actually putting the money to work to work 24/7, to give you that lifestyle that we're all aiming for, and let the money work instead of us.
Yes.
That was a huge mindset shift for me. And that was a Tony Robbins book I read years ago. That was one of the fundamental books that changed my entire mindset, which was, I was working 15, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and realizing that, when he said in the book, all these rich people and successful people, um, in monetary terms now, they're not out working, grafting 24/7. Their money is. So once you get your business right and you're making money, don't go out and buy all the crap, all the stuff that is meaningless. Put that money to work. Don't be driving about in your $700, $800 or pounds a month car or vehicle. Put that money to work and watch it compound over a decade, over 2 decades, and you will scare the shit out of yourself. And I always think it's too easy. That's too easy, but um I used to just spend money once I made it, right, buy a sprayer, right, buy this, right, buy that, because there's that whole mentality of, it comes off your tax. That was another lesson, and then my accountant said to me, well, what are you going to do? Buy a van every year? What are you going to do? Buy a sprayer or two every year? And I was like, no. And he says, why don't you start, thinking about, you know, retirement, pensions, your family, protecting, the people that you love, and start putting these things to work. And that was a huge thing whenever I got speaking to somebody who could give me good information and try and good guidance, which I think we all crave in life, you know? And it's having that good mentor or guide or coach or steward, isn't it? It's just steward. Someone that's they're not out to get something from you, but just help you on your way, and you maybe never see them again. Or, and I think people forget just how powerful, a conversation can be sometimes, in terms of helping people, and putting them in the right path.
Those guys are rare. Those guys are so rare. And I'm starting to meet them now. I've had Lee Hackmeyer, my buddy that owns Liquid Masking, and he owns the stuff that you spray on. And he
So,
does
short story, sorry, Brian, to interrupt, but I used
good.
that in New Zealand in 2012, and it started coming in a few years, but I was like, this stuff's been around for years, and it's only coming to the UK. Like, what? And it was amazing. My boss in New Zealand, he was spraying all the 12 panel doors and
Yeah.
windows and things, and I was just like, holy shit. But yeah, I don't think I can get it here, and I don't know, maybe somebody
I'll
will
talk
correct
to
me,
him.
but
I'll talk to him. He's trying to get on with Access, I think, but yeah, no, that's good stuff he has. But he's one of the first guys I met that is in the same business, but he's next level. Like he sells directly to Sherwin. When you sell directly to Sherwin, you're doing it. You know what I mean? You're doing that's at least a 6-figure, 7-figure deal a year. And so he's been helping me. But yeah, that's what you're saying, that most of the time the people around us are just your dad or your uncle, and who knows if they're healthy, who knows if they know anything. There was a lot of ignorance around me with business. I came from very powerful great men, but most of them were military guys, and military guys don't need to come in on budget. They're paid, their job's never going away as long as they're in the military. You know what I mean? So there was never any conversation about what's a good business plan, what's a good business model, how much do I need. So I went out there and learned that myself, and I've been launching products now for 33 years, and finally this one's going. 33 years I've been at it, and I've been failing, and some of it's been self-sabotage, like we talk about, or staying in the pub too long or whatever. But man, if you got that guy in there that gives you that advice, that's like, thank you, because that is so important. Stop buying a stupid car, 6-figure car to show somebody or something. That's so dumb. That's just so
it so is. Like, when I see it, like, don't get me wrong, but when you see, like, I would love that car, but I would love there's so much more that I would enjoy with that money. Like when 800,000 or 700 or 600 pound a month, and that's just one bill, and what that could be doing, and I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. So I am. I'm a huge Dave Ramsey fan. I only discovered him 2 years ago, and I've read all his books. And anybody that is having money problems, check out Baby Steps Millionaire. That changed everything for me. I was in a lot of debt, and yeah, that was complete transformation in life. And that's the enemy. A lot of people disagree with me, but I'm a big believer in just you don't need a whole lot to be happy. That's for
you
sure.
don't.
You
You
know,
don't.
um, My happy place is, as cheesy as it sounds, is my living room with my girls, the open fire in the winter, ideally, or out the back garden. Big Teddy, my dog, big Husky Malamute cross, and just chilling. Maybe the record player playing, and just family time. That's my happy place, and there's nothing better. Um, Especially when you come in after a hard day and the big dog's licking the face off you, or he's just happy to see you. It's just, and the girls as well. You know, they're torturing me or wrestling about or having fun, but I think something I realized, you know, even last 5 6 years was it doesn't take a whole lot. Want less. That's the kind of thing I like. Want less. So, you know, don't, if you want for less, you gain more. It's weird. It's hard to explain, but I used to want the world, want it all, but it took away so much. So you know, time, family, and it left me miserable. And some people have worked it out how to balance that nice, you know, but for me, I realized that do things my way, in my terms, always being you're always in control. Don't let the business control you, and keep her let. And if something's making you miserable, fucking change it right now. Don't wait the next week. Identify the problem, cut it off,
Yeah.
and keep her lit, because that one thing that's driving you down, that lead on your chest, you can't get up out of bed in the morning, that fog in your head where you're struggling to think because life's beating you down, whatever that thing is, cut it loose right now and you will feel lighter. And there might be a wee bit of short term pain, but it will get better. And that is a fact, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the stuff we've been talking about with toxic people, to being in the pub too long, to bad food and not taking care of yourself. All these things lead to misery. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm in the gym every day now. I do at least an hour a day every day. Maybe I take off one day. I cook all my own food. You know, I watch my stress level. I hang
Yeah.
out with, and I also am grateful. You get in the
Yeah.
shower and you say, "What am I grateful for today?" I'm really grateful, and so yeah, that's it. I can't wait. I have one question for you. So, what are we painting on Saturday, May 30th? What are we painting?
We're painting the Link building. So it's a building that helps um a huge, you know, the community of North Down. So you could be homeless people, people that are you know, maybe made homeless, women that have been abused, or men, domestic abuse. They help people with food. Families, they've helped over 50 families, I think, get out of debt, that have been at their wits' end, completely, you know, riddled with debt. They help the elderly in the community. They have socials for the elderly, for some to come and meet other humans and interact. It is such a huge array of services that this place provides, and that's what hit me, was just how much, you know, it does for the community. It's called the Link because it's the link of 5 or 6 churches decided years ago that they wanted to do something for their own community, and they didn't know how to help all these different, you know, um, groups. And you know, speaking to Mark, who is managing the building, you know, and the stories, it hit home, you know, because I thought this is our community, the people within the community that benefit from the causes, benefit from the services, and you know, why not? The building hasn't been painted in a long time, um, so yeah, we're gonna get in, we're gonna bring it back to life, and hopefully everyone that benefits from it and uses it, and mostly the staff, giving them that nice, happy space to deliver what they do day and daily, which is come up against some hard stories. This is people's lives, you know, and if we can help bring the noise, bring the positivity, paint some sunshine, you know, bring just bring the fun and a group of painters. You know, I go off last year, Brian, which was 28 painters, everyone else that came, cleaners, my dad even came up, and he took charge of the cleanup operation, not realizing that he was extremely sick. But it was a one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my career was painted forward last year. And we've loads of new faces, loads of new painters, which is brilliant, and they will feel what every single one of us felt last year, which was um that it was so fulfilling. Put it that way. It was actually when Ollie, we were painting the exterior out the back of the building, and Ollie come up. He's non-verbal. We had he's autism, and he tapped me. His mummy tapped me, and he handed me a wee handmade card, and he's saying, you know, thank you. And the wee card said, thank you so much, Jared, for I love this building. It gives me so much. And you know, it could have made a stone cry, Brian. It was a really touching moment, and it was incredible, you know. So if I can create that again, and you know, us as it's not me, it's not me, it's everyone involved, the suppliers, the painters, um, all these people that are giving up their time and expertise, and everyone does it for their own reason, which is even more special because everyone feels like they maybe want to give back to somebody that helped them, or want to give back to their community, or maybe they want to just maybe forge a friendship with another decorator. Maybe they've been working alone for 40 years or 20 years, and they want to just forge that relationship and be a part of something, because we're tribal. We all want to be a part of something. And if I can get that community built even bigger, and you know, open some doors and bring the noise, DJ, food, the crack, and hopefully organize a meetup of some description afterwards where everybody can mingle, connect, but forge friendships. That's what it's all about for me, you know.
Yep. You should be proud of yourself. It's great stuff. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be great. Dylan, my buddy, has never been to outside the U.S., so he's going to follow me around. We're going to land in Dublin. We're going to ride out with Kevin Hottie. We're going to hang with you. We're going to Edinburgh.
Awesome.
We're going to go so it's going to be wonderful. And we're all professional painters. I'll take over the cleaning spot. I got that. I'm the catcher on that. And the brushes come my way, and we'll get them back out there. So yeah, looking forward to it. And
Brian, we're super excited to have you.
Yeah.
And listen, I really appreciate you giving up your time and having this conversation with me. Hopefully, someone gets something from it. It helps somebody. And if you're listening during work, I hope it's made your day that wee bit better. You've got a bit of a laugh, and you've enjoyed the crack. But Uncle B, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jerry.
I really appreciate it, and I will catch up with you very, very soon.
I loved it.
Take
Thank
care.
you. All right. Thank you, buddy.